Welcome to USA Football Explained, and subscribe to our channel.
Every major NFL rule change of the 21st century. The Tuck Rule. In the dense and often arcane archives of the National Football League's rulebook, few entries have ever achieved the level of single-name infamy as the Tuck Rule. Officially implemented in March of 1999 as Rule 3, Section 2, Article 2, Note 2, it existed for years in relative obscurity, a piece of legalistic jargon known only to the most dedicated officials and league executives. The rule technically stated that if a quarterback initiated a forward-throwing motion, any subsequent loss of ball control while attempting to tuck the ball back into his body would be ruled an incomplete pass, not a fumble. It was a distinction of intent over action, a nuance that would remain dormant until one of the most pivotal moments in modern NFL history. That moment arrived on the snow-covered field of Foxborough Stadium on January 19, 2002. In the AFC Divisional Playoff game, the underdog New England Patriots trailed the Oakland Raiders 13-10 late in the fourth quarter. Patriots quarterback Tom Brady, then relative unknown in his first year as a starter, dropped back to pass and was hit squarely by Raiders cornerback Charles Woodson, a future Hall of Famer. The ball came loose and was recovered by the Raiders, a play that appeared to seal the victory for Oakland. But referee Walt Coleman initiated a review, and after a lengthy delay emerged to announce his stunning decision. Citing a tuck rule, the call was overturned. It was an incomplete pass. The Patriots retained possession, tied the game, and won in overtime. The reversal and the rule that enabled it instantly became a flashpoint of controversy. For Raiders fans, it was the ultimate officiating robbery, a call that single-handedly ended their Super Bowl aspirations. For the rest of the league, it was the moment that launched a dynasty, the first what if in a long line of improbable Patriot victories. The debate raged for over a decade, a constant symbol of a rulebook perceived as overly complex and counterintuitive. Finally, acknowledging the unending confusion, the league's owners voted to repeal the rule in March 2013. The vote was a near-unanimous 29-1, a clear admission that the rule had outlived its purpose. In a final, fitting twist, the lone team to vote against the repeal was the Pittsburgh Steelers, a longtime rival of the Patriots, who stated they had been against the rule from its inception and voted no simply as a final act of protest. Horse collar ban. In the brutal calculus of an NFL tackle, injuries are an accepted risk, but some actions create dangers so specific and so severe that the league is forced to intervene. Such was the case with the horse collar tackle, a technique where a defender, often beaten by a ball carrier, would grab the inside of the player's shoulder pads or jersey from behind and use their body weight to pull them down. This created a violent, hinge-like motion that often trapped the runner's leg beneath their own body, leading to a disproportionately high rate of severe ankle and fibula fractures. The technique was a desperate, last-ditch effort that carried a devastating cost. The technique was most famously and effectively utilized by hard-hitting Dallas Cowboys safety Roy Williams. A tackle he made on Philadelphia Eagles star receiver Terrell Owens in a 2004 game, which resulted in a broken leg and torn ligament for Owens, became a poster child for the tackle's inherent danger. That injury, along with several other high-profile incidents during the 2004 season, including injuries to quarterbacks like Donovan McNabb, created a groundswell of support for a ban. It became the top player safety priority for the NFL Competition Committee heading into the offseason. In 2005, the league officially outlawed the technique, designating it a 15-yard personal foul. Many offensive players and coaches lauded the decision as a crucial step in protecting them from career-threatening harm, while some defensive players argued it removed a necessary tool for tackling bigger opponents. The rule has now been widely regarded as one of the most successful and important player safety initiatives of the 21st century, having effectively eliminated a specific, unnecessary danger from the game. Protecting the defenseless. As the 2000s progressed, the speed and hitting power of NFL athletes continued to escalate, leading to ever more violent collisions. A particular area of concern was the hospital pass, a throw that leads a receiver into an area where they are completely exposed to a devastating hit while attempting to make a catch. Responding to this and a growing awareness of the dangers of head trauma, the league undertook a massive expansion of its player safety rules in 2009, centered on the formal definition and protection of the defenseless player. This new category identified any player in a state of vulnerability, one who is unable to properly see or protect themselves from impending contact. The definition of a defenseless player was intentionally broad, covering a wide range of game situations. It included a receiver reaching for a pass, a quarterback for a moment after releasing the ball, a kicker during and after their kicking motion, a punt returner awaiting a catch, and even a player already being tackled by another opponent. The new rules outlawed any forcible contact to the head or neck area of these players, demanding a revolutionary level of caution and restraint from defenders. The impact on the game was immediate and profound, fundamentally altering the nature of defensive play. Tackles that were once celebrated on highlight reels now resulted in 15-yard penalties and, more significantly, massive fines for illegal hits. The league established a strict system of escalating financial penalties for repeat offenders, with players like Pittsburgh Steelers linebacker James Harrison becoming famous for accumulating hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines for illegal hits. This package of rules marked a major philosophical turning point for the NFL, signaling a clear prioritization of player safety, particularly concerning concussions, over the savage, bone-jarring hits that had long defined the sport's aesthetic. The Hines-Ward Rule. In the same 2009 offseason that saw the league establish broad protections for defenseless players, another rule was enacted to address a very specific and violent form of contact, this time initiated by the offense. For years, wide receivers known for their blocking prowess could deliver devastating, often unseen blocks to defensive players. The new rule was designed to eliminate the most dangerous of these blindside blocks, making it illegal to deliver a forceful block with the helmet, shoulder, or forearm to an opponent's head or neck area when that opponent is pursuing a play and unaware of the impending contact. The rule quickly became unofficially known as the Hines-Mend Rule. Hines Ward, the legendary Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver, was widely regarded as the best and most physical blocking receiver of his generation. His aggressive style, while lauded by teammates and coaches, often bordered on dangerous and resulted in numerous concussive hits on unsuspecting defenders. The rule was not meant to outlaw blocking, but to remove the headhunting aspect of blindside hits. A violation results in a 15-yard personal foul penalty. The rule's significance lay in its acknowledgement that player safety was a two-way street. Offensive players could be just as responsible for dangerous plays as their defensive counterparts. It leveled the playing field for safety enforcement and closed a major loophole that had allowed for some of the most brutal collisions in the game.
Moving the kickoff. For nearly a century, the kickoff stood as one of football's most electrifying and violent plays. It was a spectacle of two lines of elite athletes sprinting at full speed toward each other over a long distance, culminating in a series of high-impact collisions. However, extensive data analysis by the league confirmed what many already suspected. The kickoff was, by a significant margin, the single most dangerous play in the game, accounting for a disproportionately high number of concussions and severe injuries. To combat this, the competition committee made a bold, data-driven change in 2011. The league moved the kickoff spot forward 5 yards, from the 30-yard line up to the 35. The explicit goal was not subtle. It was to engineer the kickoff return out of the game by dramatically increasing the number of touchbacks. A kicker standing 5 yards closer to the end zone would, in theory, be able to boot the ball through it with much greater frequency. The data proved the theory correct in spectacular fashion. In the 2010 season, just 16.4% of kickoffs resulted in a touchback. In 2011, after the rule change, that number skyrocketed to 43.5%. To further solidify this trend, another adjustment was made in 2018, allowing a player to signal for a fair catch inside their own 25-yard line, which would also automatically result in a touchback. These changes fundamentally altered the strategy and importance of special teams, effectively trading a few moments of high-octane excitement for a quantifiable increase in player safety. The concussion protocol. While rule changes on the field aimed to reduce injuries, the league faced a growing crisis off the field regarding the diagnosis and management of head trauma. For years, the decision for a player to return to a game after a bell ringer was often left to the player and coaches, an approach woefully inadequate for the severity of brain injuries. Facing mounting pressure from former players' lawsuits and groundbreaking research into CTE by doctors like Bennett Omalu, the NFL formally introduced its first comprehensive concussion protocol in 2011. This was a landmark moment, representing a complete shift in the league's handling of its most critical health issue. The protocol established a rigid, multi-step process that removed the decision to return to play from those with a vested interest in winning. It mandated that any player showing signs of a concussion must be immediately removed from the game and evaluated by the team's medical staff. Critically, the final clearance to return to competition could only be given by an independent neurological consultant, a doctor unaffiliated with any NFL team. Since its inception, the protocol has been strengthened almost annually. The league added athletic trainers in booths known as spotters to watch the game and call a medical timeout if they see a player exhibiting concussion-like symptoms. The list of observable signs was expanded, and the steps for returning to play became more rigorous. While debates continue about its occasional application, the formal protocol stands as the league's most significant and enduring response to the concussion crisis. Lowering the crown. The increased focus on preventing head injuries led the league to scrutinize not just the result of a hit, but the technique of the hit itself. In 2013, the NFL Competition Committee banned the act of initiating contact with the crown of the helmet. The rule specifically made it a foul for a runner or a tackler to line up an opponent in open space and deliver a forcible blow with the top of their helmet. The rule carried a severe 15-yard penalty and was designed to be a major point of officiating emphasis, representing a direct attempt to legislate the helmet out of the game as an offensive weapon. The rule's intent was to force a fundamental change in player behavior. Generations of players had been taught to put your hat on the ball, a coaching point that often led to players lowering their heads before contact. The new rule demanded a heads-up approach, encouraging players to see what they were hitting, a technique proven to be safer for both the player delivering and the player receiving the blow. It was met with some resistance as players struggled to adjust their ingrained instincts in the split-second timing of an NFL play. However, the league remained firm, viewing the rule as a necessary step in the cultural evolution of the sport, slowly reteaching the fundamentals of running and tackling to protect the brain and neck of its athletes. The pat shift. For the vast majority of NFL history, the point after touchdown or pat was the most anticlimactic and predictable play in sports. From 19 to 20 yards out, NFL kickers were practically automatic, with success rates hovering above 99%. It was a play that consumed time but offered zero drama. After years of discussion about how to inject meaning into the play, the league enacted a simple but revolutionary change in 2015. They moved the spot of the kick. The line of scrimmage for an extra point was shifted from the 2-yard line all the way back to the 15-yard line, transforming the once trivial kick into a much more formidable 33-yard attempt. The effect was precisely what the league had hoped for. The 33-yard pat was no longer a certainty. Success rates immediately dropped from over 99% to a league average of around 94%. While still a high percentage play, the very real possibility of a miss added a new layer of drama and tension after every touchdown. Furthermore, the increased difficulty of the kick forced coaches to think more strategically, leading to a noticeable increase in teams opting to attempt a 2-point conversion. The pat shift is widely considered a massive success, a rare example of a rule change that simultaneously increased the excitement, strategic depth, and competitive integrity of the game, all by fixing a play that had simply become too easy. This success emboldened the league to finally try and solve its most notoriously confusing rule. What is a catch?
For nearly a decade, that simple question plagued the NFL, leading to a seemingly endless saga of controversial, game-altering, and often baffling reversed touchdowns. The heart of the issue was the so-called Calvin Johnson rule, a standard that required a receiver not only to gain control of the ball and get 2 feet in bounds, but also to maintain control throughout the entire process of going to the ground. This final clause, the process element, created a legalistic nightmare, as receivers would make spectacular catches only to have the ball shift slightly upon hitting the turf, resulting in an incompletion. 2 plays stand as monuments to this era of confusion. The first in 2010 saw Detroit Lions star Calvin Johnson make a clear game-winning touchdown grab, only to have it overturned because he briefly lost full control of the ball while placing it on the ground to celebrate. The second, and perhaps more infamous, was Dez Bryant's 4th down catch for the Dallas Cowboys in the 2014 NFC Divisional Playoffs, which was overturned upon review, effectively ending his team's season. The public outcry from these incidents and dozens of others finally forced the league to act. In 2018, the rule was completely rewritten and simplified. A catch now required only 3 clear elements: control of the ball, 2 feet or another body part, down in bounds, and performing a football move like taking a 3rd step or reaching for the goal line. The surviving the ground element was eliminated, bringing much-needed common sense and clarity back to the most fundamental act in football, although a new controversy was already brewing around how to tackle the quarterback.
The body weight rule. In its ongoing quest to protect its most marketable assets, the NFL made another adjustment to its roughing the passer rules in 2018. This time, it was a point of emphasis, instructing officials to penalize a defender for landing on a quarterback with most or all of their body weight. The intent was clear: to prevent the kind of crushing, pile-driving sacks that can lead to shoulder and rib injuries for a quarterback who is already down or in a vulnerable position. While the goal was laudable, its on-field application immediately sparked massive controversy and confusion. The rule was met with immediate backlash from defensive players and fans. Star defenders like Green Bay's Clay Matthews were flagged for what appeared to be textbook sacks, simply because their momentum made it impossible not to land on the quarterback. The rule forced defenders into the biomechanically absurd task of trying to tackle a 240-pound quarterback at full speed while simultaneously attempting to defy physics by rolling their own body weight to the side before impact. It remains one of the league's most debated and inconsistently applied rules, highlighting the constant, precarious struggle between the league's desire to maximize player safety and maintaining the fundamental, physical nature of defensive football. This struggle would lead the league to try a radical and ultimately doomed officiating experiment: the PI experiment. In the final minutes of the 2018 NFC Championship game between the Los Angeles Rams and the New Orleans Saints, one of the most blatant and consequential officiating errors in NFL history occurred. A clear case of defensive pass interference by a Rams defender was not flagged, a non-call that directly prevented the Saints from running out the clock and kicking a game-winning field goal, likely costing them a trip to the Super Bowl. The ensuing public and media outrage was so immense that it forced the league into a radical, reactionary, and ultimately failed experiment for the 2019 season only, making pass interference reviewable. The new rule allowed coaches to challenge both calls of pass interference and non-calls on the field. The hope was that instant replay could act as a safety net to prevent another disaster like the one in New Orleans. However, the experiment was a spectacular failure. The subjective nature of the penalty made it nearly impossible for replay officials in New York to find the clear and obvious evidence needed to overturn the call on the field. Coaches burned challenges out of frustration, game flow was disrupted, and the final numbers were damning. Out of 81 total reviews of pass interference, only 13 were overturned. Acknowledging the widespread dislike of the rule from officials, coaches, and fans, the league abandoned the PI experiment after just one season, instead turning to a more subtle technological solution to aid its officials: the Sky Judge. After the failed pass interference experiment, the league shifted its focus from reviewing subjective calls to more effectively correcting objective errors. Beginning in the 2021 season, the NFL expanded the power and role of the replay official, sometimes referred to as the sky judge. This official, located in a booth with access to all broadcast feeds, was given the authority to advise the on-field officiating crew on certain objective situations, even without a formal coach's challenge or a stoppage in play. The sky judge's purview is limited to indisputable, objective facts. This includes things like determining the correct down number, confirming a fumble recovery, spotting an incorrect penalty enforcement, or managing the game clock. The goal is to use technology to fix obvious administrative errors quickly and efficiently, without the lengthy process of a full replay review. It represents a significant step toward a more centralized officiating model, where a second set of eyes can prevent simple but consequential mistakes. This theme of using a new process to correct a perceived injustice would soon be applied to the league's most high-stakes situations: playoff overtime, postseason overtime. The NFL's sudden death overtime rules had been a source of debate for years, but the issue reached a boiling point in a legendary AFC divisional playoff game in January 2022. In a contest for the ages, the Kansas City Chiefs and Buffalo Bills engaged in a furious offensive shootout, scoring a combined 25 points in the final 2 minutes of regulation. The game went to overtime, where the Chiefs won the coin toss, marched down the field, and scored a touchdown on the very first possession to win 42-36. Under the existing rules, the game was over. The Bills' offense, led by quarterback Josh Allen, who had been virtually perfect, never got a chance to touch the ball. The outcry was immediate. Fans and analysts argued that a format that allowed a championship-caliber game to be decided by a coin toss was fundamentally flawed. Responding directly to this criticism, the league changed its overtime rules for the postseason, beginning with the very next season. The new rule guaranteed that both teams would get at least one possession in overtime, even if the first team scores a touchdown. A game could only end on the first possession if the defense or special teams scored a safety. After its successful and popular implementation in the 2022 playoffs, the rule was expanded to cover the regular season as well, marking a major shift toward ensuring competitive fairness in the game's most crucial moments, just as the league identified its next dangerous tackle to ban: the hip drop tackle. The NFL's ongoing effort to enhance player safety by analyzing injury data led it to its latest target in March of 2024, the hip drop tackle. The league's competition committee, armed with extensive research, identified this specific technique as an outlier that caused non-contact lower body injuries at a rate 20 to 25 times higher than other forms of tackling. The tackle is defined as a defender grabbing a ball carrier, swiveling their body, and then unweighting themselves by dropping their hips and lower body onto the back of the player's legs, effectively trapping them. The league pointed to significant season-ending injuries suffered by high-profile players like Baltimore Ravens tight end Mark Andrews and Dallas Cowboys running back Tony Pollard as key examples of the tackle's devastating potential. The move to ban it was immediately met with fierce and debated debate. The NFL Players Association spoke out against it, and many defensive players argued that it was a fundamental and often unavoidable technique for bringing down bigger, stronger offensive players in the open field, especially when approaching from the side or behind. The ban represents the very latest chapter in the league's century-long and often controversial struggle to legislate violence out of a fundamentally violent sport, constantly trying to balance the physical demands of the game with the long-term health and safety of its athletes.
If you enjoyed this, I'm going to be posting a lot here. I would greatly appreciate it if you could subscribe. Thanks for watching.